Okay, Year 11, pause the video and play when you're ready to go through the answers. Okay, so when you've got a quadratic, just like we were doing earlier in the week, you want to make it equal to 0. So if we make this equal to 0, we've got x squared plus 7x plus 10 is equal to 0. If I then factorize that, I've got x plus 5, x plus 2 is equal to 0. So my two values of x are -5 or -2. If we're rationalizing 3 over root 5, I'm going to multiply it by root 5 over root 5, which is going to give me 3 root 5 over 5, and I can't simplify that anymore. Now, this question is not a right-angled triangle, but we do have a side and its opposite angle. So it's going to be the sine rule. We're trying to work out an angle, so we need it as sine A over A equals sine B over B. Now we've got sine x over 10 is equal to sine 60 over 14. So I can do sine to the -1 of 10 sine 60 over 14. And all I've got to do is type that into my calculator correctly. So 10 sine 60 over 14. And that's going to give me an answer of 38.2 degrees to 1 decimal place. And then the last one, we have got a right-angled triangle. So our two options are Pythagoras or SOHCAHTOA. Now it's not Pythagoras because we haven't got two sides. So it's going to be SOHCAHTOA. So I'm going to label it up. That's my opposite. That's my hypotenuse. And that's my adjacent. I've been given the adjacent and I'm trying to work out the hypotenuse. So in SOHCAHTOA, it's going to be A and H. So I can say cos of my angle is equal to A divided by H. I just need to rearrange this. So if I multiply both sides by x, I've got x cos 30 equals 6. If I then divide both sides by cos 30, I've got x is equal to 6 divided by cos 30. If I type that into my calculator, 6 divided by cos 30 gives me an answer of 4 root 3, or as a decimal, 6.9 meters to 1 decimal place. Okay, so don't forget the basics. SOHCAHTOA, A and H is going to be cos, rearrange it properly, and then make sure you tell the examiner if you're rounding your answer. Okay, quadratic inequalities is a title for today's lesson, so write that down and then play the video when you're ready to go through the examples. Okay, now quadratic inequalities are not as easy as if it was just an equal sign. So you can see the inequality there. So what we've got, x squared plus 6x plus 8 is less than 0. Now what we've got is effectively we've got the equation y equals x squared plus 6x plus 8. I need all the answers less than 0. So the first step is to factorize it, which you will see is x plus 4, x plus 2 is less than 0. So my roots, where does it cross the x-axis? -4 and -2. So what is always helpful when you've got a quadratic inequality is to sketch the graph. Okay, some of you try and do it in your head and you get it wrong. So you need to sketch the graph. So it's going to cross at -2 and at -4. So if I was to sketch that quadratic, it would look something like this. Now I want values less than 0. Well, y equals 0 is the x-axis. So when I want the values of y to be less than 0, I want all of the bits below the x-axis. So the only part of the graph I want is this bit here. I only want this bit. The other bit, that's when y is above 0. It's above the x-axis. I'm not bothered about that. I want the bits less than 0. I only want this bit here. What I can do, what part of the graph is going to give me values lower than 0? Well, my x-coordinates must be less than -2, and they must be bigger than -4. And that is the answer, because I just want this little section of my graph. Copy that down. I will go through the next one. Okay, so in exactly the same way, so we've got x squared minus 9x plus 14 less than or equal to 0. If we factorize this, you should see that you've got x minus 7, x minus 2 is less than or equal to 0. So the roots of my equation are 7 or 2. So again, if I draw my sketch, it's going to cross at 2 or at 7. So if I draw my quadratic, it's going to look something like this. Now again, I want the bit lower than or equal to 0. So again, I want this bit underneath the x-axis, this bit here. So again, my x values must be less than or equal to 7. I'm just copying the same sign. So less than or equal to 7 this time, but they must also be bigger or equal to 2. So greater than or equal to 2, because I just want the bit of the graph that is below the x-axis. Copy that down. I'm going to go through a couple more examples. Okay, so with this one, let's just make sure that all of the signs, we want x squared to be positive, and we also want it to equal 0. So if I subtract 3x squared from both sides, I get minus 5x minus 1 is less than x squared plus 7x plus 19. I can then add 5x to both sides, so I get x squared plus 12x plus 19. And then if I add 1 to both sides, I've got x squared plus 12x plus 20. Now, hopefully, we can factorize this, which we can. So 0 is less than x plus 10, x plus 2. So the roots of my equation are negative 10 or negative 2. So if I draw out my graph, it's going to cross at negative 2 or it's going to cross at negative 10. Now, this time we want the bit bigger than 0. So we want the bit of the graph that is above. So we want this bit of the graph. And we also want this bit of the graph. We're not interested in the bit below the graph. We're not interested in this bit. That's the bit that's less than 0. So this time, I need all of the x values that are bigger than negative 2. And I need all of the x values that are less than negative 10. So I have to write it as two separate inequalities because I want this part and I also want this part. I'm not interested in the bit in the middle. Copy that down and then see if you can give the question on the right a go. Pause the video, play when you're ready to check your answer. Okay, so this one is slightly harder to factorize because you've got a coefficient greater than 1. So if you've got 2x, two lots of one of the numbers and one lot of the other. So to make 10, we've got 1 and 10 or 2 and 5. Now I need two lots of one of the numbers and one lot of the other to give me 9. So I need two lots of the 2 and I need one lot of the 5. You should have got that. So the roots of this one is negative 2, but this one, 2x plus 5 equals 0. You'd have to rearrange that. So 2x equals minus 5, so x equals minus 5 over 2. So those are your two roots. So if you were to sketch it, it's going to cross at minus 5 over 2 is minus 2.5. So that's going to be here, and that one's going to be there. We've got quadratic like so, but I want the part of the graph that is above 0. So I want this part of the graph, and I want this part of the graph. I'm not interested in the bit below the x-axis. So we should have got x values bigger than negative 2 or x values less than minus 5 over 2. Okay, take it slow. Draw out the sketch for every single question, okay? Just a sketch like I have done it. If you don't draw the sketch, you are likely to get it wrong. There are no prizes for you trying to do it in your head. You just look stupid. So make sure you draw out the graph. Okay, here are the questions. Make sure you mark your answers after. Here are the answers. Okay, here are some harder questions. What you want to do is you want to make x squared positive. So I'd be tempted to rearrange it. If you add x squared, so if I just do the top one up here just for you, so if you add x squared to both sides, you get 8x minus 15 is less than x squared. Then subtract 8x, you get minus 15 is less than x squared minus 8x. Then add 15, you get x squared minus 8x, take away 50. It's just easier when the x squared is positive. So with all of these, just try and rearrange it so that x squared is positive. Pause the video, play when you're ready to go for the answers. Here are the answers. Okay, so for this GCSE question, if you rearrange it, you get x squared minus 3x minus 4 is bigger than 0. So if you factorize that, you get x minus 4x plus 1. So your roots are 4 or negative 1. Draw the sketch every single time. Draw the sketch. You've got crosses at 4 or it crosses at minus 1. Okay, so I've just rushed that diagram. Okay, so if you draw the sketch nice and accurately, so I try and make that a bit better, not really, you get the idea. We want the bit bigger than 0, so I just want this part or this part. I'm not interested in the bit in the middle. So we've got x must be bigger than 4, that's this bit, and I need x to be less than negative 1. Okay, exit tickets to finish. Okay, so your roots here are minus 4 or 2. So draw out the sketch, even though it looks like it should be quite a quick question, they're all going to trip you up. So we've got negative 4 or plus 2. Now I want the part of the graph that's bigger than 0. So I need this part and I need this part. So I need x to be bigger than 2 and x to be less than negative 4. So it's going to be answer D. Okay, well, less than or equal to 0, I want the part of the graph, I want this part of the graph. So it needs to be x needs to be less than or equal to 2 and bigger than or equal to negative 3. So it's going to be that answer there. Okay, if you factorize this one, you should get x minus 3x plus 2 is bigger than 0. So it's the roots are going to be 3 or negative 2. Draw out the sketch. You'll be bored of me saying that, but it's really important that you do so. So we've got negative 2 or 3. Your quadratic is going to look something like this. Now we want the bit bigger than 0, so we need this part and this part. So I need x is less than negative 2, and I need x is bigger than 3. So it's going to be D. Okay, hope you managed to get that. Please do ask us if you are stuck. We will help you as quickly as we can, and we look forward to teaching you tomorrow.